Welcome to Your Mind is Trying to Kill You podcast. Join your host, Alexandros and co-host Vincent Byrne as they walk you through the deepest recesses of the mind and how it operates. They discuss all the reasons why our minds persistently get in the way of our evolution, growth, and our success. But crucially, they also teach you what you can do to change your destiny. And now, here's your host, Alexandros.
Well, hello and welcome to the 16th episode of Your Mind is Trying to Kill You podcast. I am your host, Alexandros.
And I'm your co-host, Vincent Byrne.
And today, I think that it's time we talked about something that will probably compel anyone who's been listening to our podcast to abandon us completely. All five of them.
This is where we step over the line, is it?
That's right. Well,
not that we haven't stepped over the line before.
Well, as I always say, I never cross the line. I just reposition it.
Or widen it.
Okay, so today then I have a confession to make, my friend. And that confession is that you are a magician.
I am a magician. I thought that was your gig. What do you mean by that?
Exactly. You thought that was my gig, but this is the most interesting part of it, that people in our modern society have been slightly or not so slightly misinformed about what exactly magic is. The reason why I know that it is a concept that is very tightly connected to whatever it is that we've been talking about here on this podcast is because I got to explore or started to explore the realms of shamanism and magic. And by magic, I don't mean pulling rabbits out of a hat, but rather that ancient practice of magic as in ceremonial magic. The way that we get to accomplish things through the process of ritual. So I knew when I started stepping into those realms, instantly, because I did that being already a hypnotist, right? So I already knew what hypnosis was all about. And then stepping into those realms that I have been very interested in and very intrigued by since I was a kid. So, of course, knowing that whatever it is that's intriguing to us, whatever it is that is nagging as a feeling inside, we have to. That means that you have to follow that. That is your subconscious trying to entice you to engage in a topic, in some sort of a process and a new path that you need to. Somehow your spirit will benefit out of it. So instantly, when I started exploring the realms of both shamanic rituals, shamanic ceremonies, shamanic practices, and magical practices, and in many respects, both those two are the same thing, it occurred to me that magic is ultimately, in a few words, the process of manifesting a reality into your life through actively engaging with your subconscious mind.
Okay.
So, wow, imagine my surprise, right? Knowing that, whoa, magic is really a science. I mean, if hypnosis is a science, and I totally believe that it is, I mean, at least at this day and age, even though it's still not widely accepted by everyone.
Mm.
Of course, talk about limiting beliefs and talk about programs that we've all accepted that are running our lives. But anyway, the bottom line here is that you are a magician, my friend, which means that through the path of engaging with your subconscious in a certain fashion, you get to change your reality. You get to alter your reality. We've talked about that, right? People talk about, you know what it is that people, what gets to me is that if I start talking about magic, people are like, oh, how dare you, or this is bullshit, or this is whatever. But then they go and talk about the law of attraction, and then they talk about affirmations, and then they talk about all these new agey terms that are nothing but magical practices.
So it's like as if we have this capability to be creators because there's only one creator, and magic is weird people in pointy hats. So it kind of, when you admit to being either of those, then it's almost blasphemous or ridiculous. Therefore, we'll just take the bits that aren't overtly magic and we'll package them up a different way, and we'll call it the law of attraction, and we'll deal with it that way.
That's right.
Yeah.
And you know what? It is such a half-assed way. I think it's a cowardly way of dealing with life. I mean, you want to tell someone how to engage in their power, but then you're afraid that if you use certain terms, the marketing of that approach is going to be tainted because people are going to be scared and run away, right? And so you just choose a different terminology. Now, that's a very, I don't know, I think it's a very cowardly way of approaching this sort of thing. And so
I think there's also, well, I was going to say that I think there's also, it's not obvious. I mean, until we probably start our conversations, I didn't necessarily link the two. So the law of attraction was out here and affirmations and all that stuff there. And then I would never have thought of creator and magician and all of those kind of terms in the same breath as describing myself or your average person. So the average person doesn't know it. It's like they don't know what they don't know. And it's only when you start, as we have been doing, bringing the two together to demonstrate that we are actually creators. And we have already linked it to things like visualization, affirmations, manifesting your reality, thoughts become things, all that sort of stuff. So I think there's a large element of people who just don't know and who just don't bring it together. So, and maybe that's the fault of the people who created the secret. They didn't want to say it. I suspect it was probably less to do with that and more to do with the fact that they didn't know either. They just thought affirmations, this is great, let's do it. And now we have something to make a movie about, make lots of money on.
Well, yeah. You know what? That makes sense. What you're saying makes sense. I don't know if they know, but this is what I know. If they did know, I believe they still would have done the same thing.
Okay. Yeah. It's marketing, which is kind of hypocrisy as well in a lot of ways.
Look, I'm glad that you just said that, because marketing, when we use the term marketing in this way, it's like saying human nature. Okay, so we are programmed to accept, to believe that human nature is bullshit. We've talked about that.
Yeah.
Right. So in a similar fashion, we've accepted that marketing is lying to people in order to persuade them to buy some shit they don't need. No. You see, it could be that, but that doesn't mean that that's what it is. Ultimately, marketing is finding a way to adequately present a concept, an idea, or a product to the masses, to the population, right? And
it depends on whether you have integrity or not, as to whether the message you present is truthful or whether it's lies, as we discussed in on a previous podcast. And that's really down to the individual. Some will know, but a lot of people won't know whether we're dealing with truth or lies.
Yeah. So it is disturbing to me that people continually look at this concept of marketing and they're thinking, well, marketing this is what most people think marketing is. Oh, marketing is lying to people. And this is why even in the advertising world, so much goes so wrong. Because advertising in and of itself is not evil.
No.
You could be advertising a way for people to get liberated, to break their chains, which is, by the way, what we're doing here.
Yeah.
So, but if you choose to advertise in a way that you will find ways to penetrate the main consumer's subconscious mind and implant shit in there in order for them to feel and think that they need to consume your product, then that's evil.
Yeah.
This is devious. This is, and of course, that's why people, what is it? The cliches, the stereotypes, like used car salesman, right? People expect, people never think that they're going to deal with a used car salesman and they won't be screwed by this person. They won't be screwed over, because that's the belief that has happened, and now everyone believes that. But here's the question: is every used car salesman a crook?
No.
Right. So I thought in our little way, we can shed some light on what it means to be a magician. Because guess what? The magic that you are creating is not going away just because you are not looking at it. Right? The magic that you are making is there. It's like, someone giving a gun to a child without explaining to them how to use it. So is that better? Does it serve people to be in possession of a massively powerful weapon that they have no idea how to use properly? And as a matter of fact, they don't even have any idea that they have it.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's actually the biggest issue. I think people don't know that they have the power. And I think as we've discussed before, it was in the interests of authorities, let's say, to ensure that anything that referred to individuals having power to create magic was conveniently removed from scriptures and everything else. It was always the guy at the top who had the power. So it's no wonder that we don't believe that we have this. We don't even look to it. We don't expect that we have. So, as you said, we don't know we have the gun.
That's right.
And yet what we're doing, as I've come to learn outside this, is that we're constantly creating the reality ourselves, whether we realize it or not, by our behavior, by our thoughts, by our focus. And it's a bit like having one of those hoses that you turn on the water and it just sprays all over the place. There's no direction. And but when you grab it and you hang on to it and you can direct it at what you need to either water the plants or put out the fire, then you actually have quite a powerful tool to work with.
It's a good analogy. let's attack the limiting belief first. Why are people afraid of magic? Now, I will ask you to represent these people, and please attempt to explain to me why people are, because let's find out first why, and then let's attempt to debunk these theories.
Well, my sense would be that magic has always been portrayed as being something that was either very frivolous. So you had the guys pulling rabbits out of hats, or you had the friendly wizard in Disney cartoons, sort of that side, or you had an image of people who were evil, and it was associated with the occult and devil worship and all that sort of stuff. And what people wear, and the fact that there was ritual, all that kind of stuff was sort of put in a box, and it's called, don't go there, it's dark, don't open the box. So I would say that's why people have a built-in pre-programmed thought about it without ever having explored it, without ever having really looked into it, and certainly not in the context that they may have powers themselves that they're not aware of. So it's something out there that's evil. And like Disney on the one hand has the very frivolous side, but then it also projects and portrays the evil side of it and how magic is used in a very evil way. And then there's the other piece, which is that I suppose that comes from religious teachings, which is that you actually don't have any power. The only one who has power is God or someone at the top of the tree. And the only way that you can create things is to pray to God and hope that it happens. So you don't have the power. It's just you have to ask somebody else for it, and maybe they'll give it to you. So that would be, that's my upbringing. And while I'm not afraid of magic, it's just not something I ever looked at. But they're the kind of images that I would have been exposed to, and therefore it's no surprise that without lifting the covers on it a little bit, you just make assumptions that either it's silly, it's not relevant, it's not real, it's fantasy, and therefore let's not go there.
That's really good. That's very well done. Thank you, my friend. The way you're going, you might even get redrafted for next year.
Really? Might get re-signed?
Right. Yeah. Have your contract renewed. Well, I was taking notes here as you were saying, as you were providing me with this very eloquent description of why people are afraid of magic. So you mentioned the word ritual, which is interesting to me. What is ritual? Can we find a definition of what ritual is? Let's find the definition. A religious or solemn ceremony consisting of a series of actions performed according to a prescribed order.
Yeah.
Now, that's perfect. I love it. What is religious? What is religious? We have talked about that. Religious is the process. A process is religious if it's repetitive, if it's not being questioned, and if it's obsessive. So a ritual is what? It's like a program. It's a belief. You want me to mention a few rituals? You probably, I don't know about you, but most people, like when you get up in the morning, right? Yeah. What do most people do? The first thing they do when they get up in the morning?
Go into the bathroom.
Well, yes, but that's a forced
ritual.
That is a ritual.
Yeah.
Drink coffee.
Yeah.
They do, the vast majority of the people out there, they have very strict daily rituals in our lives.
Yeah.
Right? So these rituals are what then? Religious. They are religious. Just because they don't consciously pray to some god that doesn't mean that these rituals are not rituals. They are performing a ritual act.
Yeah.
Right. So like, or let's say you have dinner and people have dinner in a very similar fashion every night, right? It's like the way we do like a family dinner or whatever. And a lot of us grew up with this kind of rituals. They felt like rituals more perhaps than they do today, because the concept of the cohesive nuclear family has disappeared or is very fast disappearing. But we do that. Then we have that ritual that's called having dinner with the family. And then we have another ritual that's called watching a movie with the family, or watching TV, or or watching the news. You wake up in the morning and you put on the news. How many people do that, right?
Absolutely. I mean, today when I was growing up, my dad used to, on a Saturday night, he would come in at a certain time and he would produce these bars of chocolate for each one of us. And we all had our own particular type. And this was done every Saturday at a particular time. Once we'd had our baths and all that sort of stuff and we're there watching TV, he would produce this. So that was a ritual. But I think that certainly in my mind, in the way that the English language can use the same word to describe different things, the context of a ritual, which is a regular practice, versus a ritual which is a shamanic ritual or a religious ritual or something like that. It's like we see them as two different things. So I think that there's a separation, even though the definition is the same. We see them in two different contexts, so therefore they're not the same.
Of course we do, but are they? All right. So when you go to a wedding, is that a ritual or is it not?
Yeah, it's a ritual.
Of course it is. When you go to a baptism, it's a ritual. Yes, of course it is. So then, but of course it's not. It's like, how dare you? The wedding is the most beautiful thing ever. But so what is the difference here? The difference is in people's minds. See, because it's being understood, I guess, that the magical ritual is a ritual that holds some kind of devious act, right? Which, of course, is entirely unfounded.
Other than in Disney cartoons, where the ritual is somebody's about to get carved up or put in a pot of boiling water or before somebody saves them. So,
right. And then, let us not forget about the rituals that we're not even aware of. And what are those rituals? I'll give you one. Everyone can relate to that. Gossiping. Now, when you gossip about someone, especially behind their backs, which I think
it wouldn't be proper gossiping if it wasn't behind their backs.
I guess that is the definition of it. So what are you doing when you gossip? What do? You are spelling words that come out of your mouth, and they hold a certain emotional significance. And that emotional significance, when you gossip, as far as I'm concerned, is negative. Like it's very rare that people gossip, praising someone.
Yeah.
So that, my friend, is a magical ritual as well. When you're having a graduation, like people, kids are having graduation, and they wear their hats and their robes or whatever they do here. And I guess throughout the world, there's all kinds of different ways that people have to perform these rituals. This is a magical ritual. Why is it a magical ritual? Because that kind of ceremony, and it is a ceremony. Isn't that what they call it? It's a ceremony. Yes. So in that ceremony, you are supposed to dress up and become, in your mind, that person that is now more enhanced than the person you were yesterday.
So the wearing of the robe signifies your transition into another level, I suppose.
That's right. So it is a magical ritual through and through. Okay, because and let us make a parenthesis here and go into an antiquated, let's say it's an antiquated way of looking at a magical ritual. You know, you mentioned the pointy hats and the robes and the so on. I mean, that's not necessary, but it is still performed by certain magicians like that. Why? Because the theatricality of it does what, my friend? You know what it does. What does it do? It engages your subconscious mind.
Yeah.
That theatricality of it makes everything look like it's not, this isn't what was happening an hour ago. You are in a new world right now. You are cooking a new reality. And what better way to convince your subconscious of that than dressing it up differently, right? That's why you wouldn't go to your wedding, I hope, in your pajamas, right? Why? What's the difference? What's being wedded is not, your body, so your clothes.
Yeah.
Right? It's your spirit, yes? Okay, so why wouldn't you go in ripped jeans or your pajamas or just, your whatever, gym clothes? Why wouldn't you do that? Because you are signifying to your subconscious mind that once you step into that ritual, you're a different person.
I think that's the intention behind the rituals. But I think what's evolved in terms of practice is that people do the dressing up and they go through the motions, but they don't actually have that sense of what the intention is. Yes, the intention is to get married, but all of the other stuff that goes with it, the joining of two people, or in the case of the graduation, someone moving from one state to a new, nobody pays any attention to it. It's just, you're literally just going through the motions.
That's right. So you just came back to my original statement. That means you're performing magic being entirely consciously unaware. When you're going to the church and take communion, is that not a magical ritual? So look, I hope
is it not a case that, well, it's the way that I tend to see it is that there's rituals, and now that you've introduced the concept of magical rituals, to me there's a difference. There's a ritual whereby someone is just going through the motions, number of people who might turn up. I remember it. I mean, back in the day when I would turn up and go to mass every week, I literally was going just, come on, what time? Like, who's the quickest priest here to get this over with so I can get out and back out again? And been engaged in what was going on, not interested at all. And that's the case for a hell of a lot of people. And that's why in Ireland, I mean, there aren't even like there's such a shortage of Irish priests. They're now bringing priests in from Africa. So they've completely reversed the thing where Irish people were going over to Africa to convert them. Now the Africans are coming over here and saying mass. But anyway, but there's still this thing that you're going through this ritual, going through the motions of it, but the intention is not there. And to me, the magic only comes into it when the intention is there, when the connection with what is happening is there. Now, you may tell me you're wrong, but that's my sense of it.
You're not wrong. You're right. You're right. But when it comes to this, what we're doing right now is defining whether or not we participate in rituals every day.
Okay. Yeah.
I am not commenting on whether or not these rituals are successful, but they are rituals. So,
okay.
Therefore, you yourself are telling me that the vast majority of the people, 99.9% of them actually, are constantly performing rituals that are either empty or are to the detriment. And I will...
Yeah, and they're empty and they're habitual. I mean, the idea, for example, that someone at 10 o'clock, you see that with people, you see it a lot here, and probably in Greece as well, where there's a certain time when, people will get up and they'll go to the local hostelry, the pub or whatever, and they'll go and meet their friends at 10 o'clock every Thursday night, and they'll all be there. So you have that going on as much as you have when they come out of the pub, and the first thing they do after they've had a number of pints of beer is go straight to the chipper to get fish and chips to soak up the beer that they've just had. Again, another ritual. But it's kind of just habitual stuff that they do. And people smoking, the behaviors become habits, and that's what they do.
Okay, so let me interrupt you there for a second. You mentioned smoking, and it's very interesting because there's smoking and there's smoking. As you may be already aware of the fact that the smoking that is a prayer when it comes to the Native American ways of doing it has nothing to do with the smoking that is an addiction. You see, when I smoke my pipe here, I only do that when we do our podcast, by the way, if you didn't know. The reason I do that is because this is linked to my prayers, if you will, my intention being wafted into the ether, is being received from the universe. This is the reason why the Native Americans would do this as a prayer, because it makes perfect sense. I mean, with the visualization of the smoke wafting up into the atmosphere, and so it's being received. If you put your intention into the smoking and into the smoke, that intention now is being carried over, right, into the universe.
Okay.
So talk about proper visualization and execution. That is masterful. Now, this taken by the modern society and completely warped as everything else has been,
including marketing.
That's right. Now what happens? You see, when people smoke, even the act of, forget about what you're smoking, why you're smoking it, what it does to your health. Forget about all that stuff. Let's just forget about all that, as if that wasn't even the case. But when do you see people? What do people do usually on the smoke? And we're talking about the smoker that needs to take a break and go out of the building, right? The place of work, in the freezing cold outside or smoldering hot heat, because they need to smoke that cigarette. Then what happens while they smoke that cigarette? Can you describe to me? Imagine what happens while they smoke that cigarette. What goes through their mind?
I don't know. A sense of relief.
No.
Satisfying a craving. No.
This is just the aftermath. This is just the extra bonus, if you will. But what really happens is they are processing their problems.
Okay.
I mean, you've seen people smoke, deliberately smoke when they're stressed out, right? When they are, right? Why do they do it? I mean, forget about why they do it, but what happens while they're doing it? They smoke their troubles away.
Okay.
And in that kind of sense, right, which the Native American sense, they are what now? They are throwing their troubles out into the universe, and their troubles become their prayer. Their troubles become their intention, you see. And so then the magicians that they are create shit magic in their lives, because they do everything they can to reinforce everything that's negative. You also mentioned, my friend, as you were giving me your explanation of why people are afraid of magic, you mentioned the word occult. Now, what does that mean? Occult means hidden.
Okay.
magical knowledge has been synonymous with occult knowledge, hidden knowledge. Why is that knowledge hidden? Might you want to guess?
Because it kind of recognizes the power that we have as individuals, and that if people recognize their individual power, then that's not good for the people who are trying to suppress it.
Well, in essence, that knowledge had to be hidden because the magicians that didn't have a stick up their ass and burned to a crisp realized that the only way to keep on this knowledge alive is to hide it real well.
Oh, okay.
Okay, because clearly there have been certain factions in this world, religious ones, that did not have the magician's best interest in mind. Let's just put it this way. Now, this is the reason why this knowledge has been hidden. Why else would it be hidden? I mean,
but is it also because the like there was active suppression? I mean, quite apart from the fact that you have the people, the magicians who are on the receiving end of this, I suppose, extermination or whatever. They wanted to keep things quiet in order to keep things going and also to stay alive, presumably. But the objective of those that did it in the first place was, if it was spread, then it would undermine the central control.
What central control being what, in essence?
Central, like the kings or the government, whatever. They didn't want people going around saying we're all magicians and we all have powers to create. That would create a situation where there would be instability.
Who do you think the religious organizations that banned magical practices or magical knowledge were working hand in hand with?
No, absolutely.
So what we're getting at here is the fact that we have been kept away from who we are. We keep on harping on that almost, generally speaking, on every episode. People have been not just ignorant, but utterly convinced that they're powerless.
It doesn't even cross their mind that they might have the power. I mean, it's not even a case of how could I. It doesn't even cross their mind, because everything is the message from the very start is play the game and you'll be fine. And certainly from my growing up and experience in terms of being exposed to the religious thing, is that if you want to do anything exceptional, you kind of have to go through this guy, and you have to direct your prayers there, because he's the only guy who can make it happen. You can't actually do it yourself.
Exactly. Now, I am not, as I've said all this, I'm not advocating, that everyone go out there and grab a magical journal, a grimoire, as they're called, and start, performing rituals. But what I'm saying is, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you do in the sense that you don't need that grimoire. Ultimately, you know what your magical journal is? You have one. Right? You write your stuff down, even your affirmations every day, or your progression, or your intention, or all this stuff. Putting it down, specifically being put down, handwritten. There's a special connection between the handwriting and the nervous system, and of course the subconscious.
Sure.
And you are making a spell. Try that. Choose a certain word or a certain phrase and write it down and say, oh, by the way, as I'm saying that, we have all been familiar, being kids, with the teacher at school that will have you do what if you make a mistake?
Write out lines.
Write the phrase like 100 times or whatever.
Yeah.
So what's that? That's a form of a magic spell. The teacher is drilling it into the kid's subconscious and everyone else who is witnessing, by the way, that, hey, if you want to make sure that you're good, make sure that you're accepted, make sure that you're going to progress in life and not be a bum, this is what you do, right? So it's a spell.
Yeah.
A magical spell is a spell. It's simply
so every time we write something multiple times, that is in effect creating the same power of that you would in a spell.
absolutely. And the more, and we've said that before, right? You write down your affirmation, don't you? When you write down your affirmation, what is the optimal way to write down an affirmation? Your state of mind, okay, your emotional state. I mean, you're not gonna write down your affirmation, in a bar, while drinking beer. Which, by the way, parenthesis again, that ritual that you mentioned is extremely detrimental when it's a ritual. Not the going out with the guys, but the ceremonial version of going out with the guys. Because when you do that, what do? You go there to do what? To drink and bitch about your life.
Yeah.
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 So what happens when you bitch about your life? You are with the guys. You feel that emotional bond. You feel that connection. And all of you create more of that bullshit for which you're bitching. Now, what happens if one day you don't want to go? No, guys, I don't feel like drinking. I don't. F you, man. How, you're just breaking the. This is our thing. People get upset.
Yeah.
Right? Why? Because that is a magical bond. That is a creation, a certain kind of entity now called a thought form. If you put emotional energy into your thoughts, once again, going back, there are a million different ways to cross-reference the same information here. Okay? Anything you think about that you keep on constantly putting emotional energy to is bound to be your reality sooner or later. And you know what they say? Later is sooner than you think. So all this stuff is very relevant. Okay, there are no ordinary moments. There's actually a book by Dan Millman titled that. It's a beautiful book. Dan Millman's the guy who wrote The Peaceful Warrior.
Yeah, The Way of the Peaceful Warrior. Yeah, absolutely.
So the idea here is that there are really no ordinary moments. Every moment in your life is magical. Why? Because within that every moment, if you are conscious, you put emotion into it. Right? Why is it that people wait for an entire year to go on vacation, right? And then they make plans and they elaborate plans. They see it in their minds and they collect pictures and they draw maps and and that thing becomes the most amazing time they've ever had. What is that? What on earth, what in the hell is that other than a magical ritual? You feed that. Imagine if you fed the same equal amount of emotion to your everyday life. So you don't have to say TGI fucking Fridays. Right? How many people live their lives like that? TGIF. I say TGIF you. what kind of way is that to live a life?
Yeah.
When you could indeed have, I mean, imagine if it's even possible to have that much fulfillment in your life that you get out of a 2 or 1 week vacation that you go once a year to, spending your hard-earned dollars or pounds or whatever it is, euros. You know what I mean? With usually, I'm not going to dismiss those vacations saying they're bullshit. The family time or whatever it is, fine, it's great. But people build that up and completely disregard building up their everyday lives.
So it's like they put all their eggs into the basket that is the 2-week vacation rather than looking to do it on a daily basis.
That's right. That's right. So and it is some sort of a resignation from being alive, from being an active magician, to say, oh, changing my life is too hard. So I'll just, go to the bar and forget about it for a couple of hours.
But there's also the fact, I think, that the reason that people are kept or keep themselves in that place is because they don't realize that they have the power to change. The perception of having the power to change it is more to do with, I'm in this dead-end job, I need to change it. I can't, because I'm never going to get that education in order to get to college, in order to get this, etc. And it's going to cost too much. And they put all these things there. So it's much easier to stay where I am. So it's all very mechanical, almost Newtonian in thinking, that you have to have this step kind of approach to it. Whereas with creating magic, it's not that it's suddenly going to appear in a puff of smoke, but that it's more the potential for opportunities to present themselves, to get that education, etc., all have the possibility of showing up once you start to behave with intention, the intention of making your life better. But most people don't believe that they can do that, and they think that they need money or they need breaks or whatever, and therefore that keeps them down, which really is part of the conditioning. It's like believing that they have to go through a job, and at the end of it, they get to 65, and then they're going to be paid a pension, and then they'll be looked after. It's like they've behaved in this automaton kind of way. And that's the way people have been conditioned for a long, long time.
That's right. Yes. But we're here to help them reprogram themselves, their lives. Look, in one of the episodes we talked about having a mission, right? So it all ties into that sort of thing, right? If you want your life to be a certain way, it doesn't even matter if you don't think you can be 100% successful. It doesn't matter if you can be 100% successful. What matters is die trying, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Because what else is there, right? I mean, if you were let's say someone abandoned you in a cage or in a locked house and left you there, you would have 2 choices. One, to accept that you're just going to die. So you lay down and wait for starvation to get you, or whatever, the rats or whatever the case. And the other one is to constantly keep on trying to find ways out. Yeah, absolutely. But it's what's important to know. I mean, in a situation like that, it becomes very life and death. So therefore, we tend to call on motivation, let's say, to perhaps look for a way out. But I think what's been created, I think, by conditioning is it's almost like that. I know it's not actually real, but it's a good analogy. The one about the frog in the yes.
Apparently that wouldn't happen, but assume it does. That the water slowly heats up, and then because the frog doesn't jump out, then it will be boiled or cooked. And I think that's the way that most people are. They're not in that situation where they're in that locked room and they need to find a way to get out, because there's this been it's almost like this comfort zone has been created and they're just going to suffocate within the comfort zone. So it's finding the motivation, or perhaps it's finding the knowledge that we're talking about now, which is that you can create something very different and so much better by using what we're talking about. And it's never too late. You can do it at any stage. And it's not as complex or as difficult as it might sound.
And let me close this segment by reminding you, my friend, that as a hypnotherapist, I have performed a certain number of past life regressions, and it's not a large number, but it was enough for me to get a very specific understanding of what it is that people come to as an understanding at the moment of their death, physical death. And every single time it's regret. I wish I could have done this. I wish I was more courageous. I wish I could have spoken my mind. I wish I could have been an artist. I wish I could have continued dancing. I wish I could have written that book that I always wanted to write. I'm out of time. So I think this is an appropriate way to end this. And this is the magic of this podcast. See, there's some kind of a spirit that pulls us, stretches that timeline. It's like, oh, at minute 20, I'm like, oh, okay, we covered this. We're good. I encourage everyone out there to first understand and accept that they are magicians. Because if you don't accept that, then there's nothing else to do.
Absolutely. Which effectively means you can create a different reality for yourself if you decide that you want to create it.
Absolutely. So it's all, see, you have the responsibility now. Again, this is why it's important to take responsibility for your life, because otherwise you're a victim. The victim suffers something that's been done to them. Having responsibility for your life means that now, whatever might have happened in the past, you now have the keys to the vehicle and you can drive it somewhere else.
Yeah. A coach that I read a lot of, Steve Chandler, he talks about it being a victim or an owner. So you own your life and you own the direction of it, or you're a victim to it.
That's right.
And, and the steps, as we talked before, I mean, we've talked about affirmations before, we've talked about visualization, we've talked about manifestation. I mean, it starts with making that decision that I'm going to change it. And then the next step is to start to connect your pen, your paper, your brain, your subconscious all together by actually starting to write it down. What do I want to create?
Exactly. Absolutely, my friend. That's a brilliant way to close this. So we'll hopefully see you all. Well, we won't see you, but hopefully you'll see us next week. And until then,
let's be careful out there.
And don't let your mind kill you.
Thanks for listening to Your Mind is Trying to Kill You with Alexandros Megas and Vincent Byrne. If you like our show and want to make sure that you don't miss an episode, then we would love if you would subscribe on Apple Podcasts or on whatever platform you're listening to us on. And you'd be doing us a big favor if you would support us by leaving a review as well. It would also be great if you would take a screenshot of this episode on your smartphone and share it on social media. So join us next Wednesday when we talk more about mind hacking and taking back control of your life. Until then, have a great week.